On today's episode, we're keeping it real to real. Get it? Because another stinker. What's up, nerds? I know it's been quite a while since I've had a new video out. It's just been a combination of very busy with work because summertime is when my profession kind of picks up and I'm all over the place. And I really haven't found anything worthwhile to make a good video about. I mean, I had two projects kind of in the works that I was kind of documenting, but after watching the video progress, it was just kind of boring. They're low effort, really not really much interest. I mean, it's just little things. Well, here, I'll explain. This is one of those. It was a crate CR280 found at not really a thrift store. It was more along the lines of a junk store. It was in really rough shape. The amplifier section of it looked like it had several adult beverages spilled inside of it. Everything was shot. The traces were all lifted off of the PCB. Transformer was shot. It was not even worth saving. And it didn't have speakers. Got it for like $10. So I did the right thing. Redid the entire inside. I had two spare 12-inch speakers. One was actually from yet another old crate amplifier, and it was a crate factory speaker, which is really a rebranded Eminence, and a Celestion, kind of a lower tier one that my brother had given me when he upgraded the speaker in his amplifier. Put them together, used truck bed liner to repair the torn covering on the Tolex and things like that. Home Depot grill, some black paint. Sounds wonderful. I'm using this as an extension cabinet for my Randall 212 amp, and it sounds really good. This is my little portable projector setup I built. It all started when I found this projector really cheap at Goodwill. Worked perfectly. The keystone settings were all screwed up. That's why nobody was buying it. So I just got into the menu, played with it, and got a nice projector. Also, I had this lying around. It's a little Dell. I think it's a Dell. Yeah. Little micro PC. I upgraded the hard drive to a solid state, and it runs, well, really all it has to run is VLC. Runs beautifully. And this is what makes it kind of interesting. It's an FM transmitter. I was using this to run my own little, like a neighborhood pirate radio station. Don't tell the FCC. But yeah, this will make it to where if I brought this whole setup out, plugged it into an inverter in my car, and just popped this sucker on the hood, I've got myself a, DIY drive-in if I have a large, wall or something to project it on and some friends to watch movies with in the summer heat of New Orleans, which explains why there are no drive-thrus here anymore. I pretty much killed them. Anyway, little low-effort projects that would otherwise be kind of boring. I mean, really nothing much of this. We just do a bunch of stuff in a case and called it a day. So that's the two main projects I was just kind of working off and on for the past couple of weeks. And that brings us to this guy. I actually found this about 2 years ago. I was walking my dogs one morning, and right down the street, I saw this. Somebody had thrown out a whole bunch of stuff. I guess they were moving out or something. And this was sitting right on top, complete with the boat, the take-up reel and the mystery reel right there. Immediately turned my poor dogs around, brought them home, went back, and foolishly decided to try and carry this, not knowing it weighs a lot. Should have gone back with my truck, but I got it home. I immediately plugged it in and turned it on, which is kind of a no-no with vintage electronics, but what the hell? It was going to the trash anyway. I figured if it was dead, it was dead. If it was going to explode, it's going to explode. So I took a gamble, plugged it in, spooled up the reel, and it played very warbly. Basically, what I found on this reel was a mixtape. Well, yeah, it is a tape of late 70s greatest hits. A lot of Eagles on there. And it was pretty, decent. But you see, I already have a reel to reel. This is the first reel to reel I got. I found it several years ago at a thrift store, and I think I paid less than $30 for it, which is a great deal because this thing is flawless. Everything works and it sounds amazing. I mean, sure, it could probably use a belt change or so, but you'd never know it by listening to it. There's no warbliness or anything like that. It plays just fine. It's a realistic TR-3000, which is a rebranded TAC X300, I think. Just, mid level reel to reel player that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. Not exactly sure the date, but yeah, it works great. And while my little Radio Shack one sounds and plays wonderfully, it can only play back 7 inch or 7.5, right? And a little smaller reels, not the big 10.5 inch ones. Of course, this is the only 10.5 inch reel that I've ever found, but it's good to know this will play everything else. That being said, yeah, the belts definitely need to be changed out. I'm sure the pinch roller needs to be, well, reconditioned. The plastic, I mean, the rubber coating is all really nice on it. It's not dry rotting or anything like that. But, it is kind of all shaky and warbly. So I decided, you know what? Let's make a video about rehabbing this one. I'd like to get this thing up and running to really, not perfect condition, but really good condition. And I was reorganizing my shelf of vintage audio equipment. I have like a DAT player and mini disc. I'm trying to make a collection of all obsolete media. I still need a good 8-track player, and just for shits and giggles, I'd love to get a wax cylinder player. I actually found a few wax cylinders at an antique store uh, years ago for like $1 a piece and bought a few just because they look cool. And I'd like to have a way to play them back. So I just want to have a shelf full of gear that can play back almost any audio format, just because, that's just my mental illness kicking in. And now I'm just going to kind of go over the operational status of this unit. Uh, I haven't done anything to it mechanically or physically to alter anything on it. This was the tape that came with it, and it's a tape filled with Eagles music, like a mixtape. And I'd love to play you, the music from it just to show you how it sounds. But being the Eagles and Don Henley and his notorious reputation for suing everybody and everything, plus YouTube's very, very strict copyright enforcement policy, that's not going to happen. I can tell you this, when I play it back and hear a song, say if I hear Hotel California played back on here, I will play it back on my CD player as a reference. And this is a little bit faster. Now, being that this is a recordable tape, that kind of throws everything off because I don't know if the source going into this to record was fast. Maybe the record speed on this is a little bit slower. It's really hard to say. And I'd love to get a calibration reel to reel tape. They do make them, but boy, are they expensive. I'm talking, 100 plus, 200 plus. I mean, they get really expensive just for a tape with a couple of sine waves on it. So the best I'll be able to do is grab one of my little 7-inch reels, a pre-recorded one, and one that I have, a reference to, like I already have on CD or something like that, and kind of go that way. I want a pre-recorded tape. But other than that, this thing, it actually, mechanically, everything works. The VU meters light up and you power it down, and you'll see the needles when the amplifier gives it a little bump here. The little button's a little, it doesn't stick all the time. I might have to lubricate that and clean that up. But hit play, it works fine. Uh, the speed selectors work fine. The reel adjust, I mean, I don't know if that's going to make a difference while it's playing. I assume that works. Pause function works fine. When you fast forward it, it gets up to speed. It gets very, very fast. And the braking mechanism is actually very good because when you stop, it's not a sudden stop. It doesn't take forever to stop either. It's a good stopping speed. A reverse is the same way when you go backwards. So both directions are good. And when you hit play, there's a slight delay before it actually engages. I don't know if that's designed that way or if there's like a capacitor issue, that may be going bad, not building up the full charge to activate a relay or something. We'll get into that. The volume knobs all work good, work well. I don't know. I need to work on my grammar. But anyway, it all seems to work really fine. The counter works perfectly. And like I said, the only thing that probably needs attention is the main drive belt in here, just because it's old. It plays well, but it doesn't hurt to replace that one. I don't think I'm going to mess with the counter belt in case it's too difficult to reach to. I don't want to take so much of it apart. I don't really need to because it's working fine. It doesn't affect the playback, and the counter is not really used all that much. I'm just playing back whole tapes. I'm not recording stuff and need to mark down absolute, markings on this. So it's cool to have. It's a nice little reference, but it doesn't matter if it's accurate, if it's working or anything like that. It's what it is. So I can get these reels off and kind of go over some of the other things, issues with this deck here. Once the reels are off, you can kind of see this damage. This isn't just a scratch. This is a gouge. One of the reels, I guess the edge of it really dug in. And I don't know how that could have happened. This shaft that you set the reel on, this is nice and straight. It's pretty much center with this guy here. Unless it was damaged before and it got repaired, there's no play in this. And I don't know how that could have happened. When you have the reel on it, it sits, the width of this is about a quarter of an inch or so, maybe a little bit more off the base right here. So it's a mystery. And this isn't something you can just buff out. This is here for good. So this has got character. And if I have the big 10-inch reel on it, you'll never see it. It's only when you have the smaller reels on there. But, whatever. It's character. Show down a little bit here. The volume knobs, zoom in a little bit here. They're in really good shape, but there is some oxidation going on. So it's starting to whiten up a little bit. So I have some McGuire's Ultimate Black Plastic Restorer. It's got it at Walmart. Hopefully, it'll get back to this nice, very, very black plastic. And like I said, it's just cosmetic, but it kind of takes away from it. Get that on there. Maybe do the same to these buttons. And also the pinch roller here. I don't know if this is normal for the tape deck, but let me get it from this side so my big goofy hand doesn't get in the way. This moves around a lot. It'll also go in and out a little bit too. There's a lot of play on this. I'm going to have to see if that's normal or not as well. When we get the face plate off or the rear, kind of dissect this thing a little bit and see if that's, or do some research online and see if that is something that it normally does. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. The rest of it, I mean, it's in really good shape. I don't think I'm going to need to, recap anything unless, that one capacitor that controls maybe the, when you hit the play button and it controls the pinch roller going down and all that stuff. If that's capacitor related, maybe we'll do that. Um, so yeah, let's get this guy apart and see what we got going on the inside. Okay, the back's off. Screws on the top there and a few on the back, and everything here is quite serviceable. Here's the two belts. The counter belt, oh yeah, that's really loose, but it looks like I'd have to take off the front panel or remove this whole mechanism back off this way to get to it. I'll see how much trouble it is to remove the front. Like I said, the counter is not very important and it still kind of works. So we may just leave that. Here's the main drive belt right here, the capstan belt. It's not bad. It's not great, but it definitely could be replaced. And it looks like there's a, oh, can't get right back in there. There's a pulley under here controlled by this motor. And what I'd probably have to do is remove this cover here, take the old belt off, slip the new one in under these bolts, put it back over this pulley here, and put this back on. And that should be it. Now, for that wobbly pinch roller up front, this little screw right here was extremely loose. I tightened it up. It doesn't wobble anymore. So that problem's fixed. I'm going to go through this thing, though, and clean it all out. I mean, it's, for being as old as it is, it's in really, really clean shape. I mean, you've got some corrosion up here and on the motors, but we'll just take a look and make sure it's not rusting any of the coils or anything. Big old chonking solenoids right here for the brakes. I'm going to check out like the brake pad. There's like an adjustment on these brakes right here, to kind of tension them up and see. I found the service manual, so I'm going to kind of go through it. But other than that, this thing looks, fairly decent. There's no doming of the capacitors here. Like I said, with that service manual, I'll be able to kind of go through the schematics and see if that pinch roller, solenoid, or whoever controls that relay has a capacitor in line with it that may need replacing. But looks like it's all board level right down here. All the fuses look good. There's not a lot of dirt or anything in here. This is actually in really good shape. I'll go through it with some compressed air and blast everything out. But as far as I can tell, it looks really well. So I'm going to replace the belts and kind of go over the manual and see if there's anything else I can do while we have this thing opened up. Got the front panel off. Took off the head cover as well. Gonna clean all this stuff out. I have some rubber renew we're gonna use on this little roller right here. It looks fine, but it won't hurt to spruce it up a bit. And to clean off all of these oxidized buttons, we're gonna use that Meguiar's Ultimate Black Plastic Restorer. I don't know if it'll do any good in the red. I'm almost afraid to touch it with the red. We'll do a little test spot maybe underneath where you won't see it. But hopefully it'll clear up this oxidation. Just put a little bit probably on the Q-tip, run it over, and then we'll just go from there. Also going to clean up all of these things and some deoxit, all the not the terminals, little jacks and stuff. On the front, just kind of clear it up. And when we get to the back of it, go ahead and really give everything a thorough cleaning with the deoxit. All right, everything is cleaned up, lubricated, and ready to go. Got the belt on. It went on really easy. Just slip it over the pulley on this motor here and then over this giant flywheel. Also, put a couple of drops of machine oil on the little axle down there. And I also lubricated these motors up. This one here and the two up there for the reels. I use this stuff, CRC 2-26. It's specifically made for electric motors and lubrication. I use it to, keep all my electric drills and all in check. Works really great. So they worked fine, but a little preventive maintenance never hurts. I think it spins just fine. Cleaned everything up. Brake tension is fine. They stopped good. I cleaned everything up, got all the dust off of the pads and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I lucked out. I mean, even the circuit board's cleaned up. All the caps are, not bulging, they're not leaking. There's, no corrosion down there. I really lucked out for something, I found in the trash. This was a unicorn. So yeah, everything, works. We're gonna see next. I'm gonna button it up, turn over, and check the head alignment. I found a little diagram in the service manual that'll, let me kind of see if they're in line. I think they are. I mean, I'm not hearing any crosstalk between tracks, and they sound good. Like I said, I got to load a different, like a pre-recorded commercial reel in here. This one that I found on it, it was probably recorded like garbage. God knows what happened to it, and the whole time it's been around. Also demagnetize the heads and clean them off too. That's a given. So button this up, flip it around, and see what's going on under the hood up there. All the buttons were cleaned with the Meguiar's, the knobs as well. Got the front panel back on, and oh yeah, it did work really well. I mean, even on the red, and all these little switches right here, this little knob, a little bit. But yeah, all that oxidation is gone. I touched the little bezels up here for the VU meters, these knobs, these buttons. Um, it all looks good. Also touched up the roller here just a little bit. You don't want to really overdo it. I don't know if that chemically strips the top layer off, so it's a little bit, and it's good enough. Still need to do a little bit work on this one. I got a little of that oxidation off, but I might have to actually do a couple of more passes and maybe something a little bit more rough than a Q-tip or a T-shirt, you know, something to kind of grind that off. Or maybe a little toothbrush or something, maybe. I don't know. We're going to find out. But it's a lot prettier now. Here are the heads. Thank goodness the lead on this tape is transparent because it makes it real easy to see. Your head's right here. Push up against it. Got it right there. That's the record head. This is the erase head here. That's right on top. And this is the playback head. These guys here, and you press it down, you can see those heads are kind of towards the top, and they should look like this. And they do. So that means these are relatively aligned. They look good. Well, as far as alignment, there is some sort of corrosion and pitting going on here. Bring down this little tape here, and you can see, yeah, that's not supposed to be, leopard print. That is some corrosion going on. I can kind of feel that, slight pitting. So I'm going to have to find out an appropriate way to kind of clean this off. I was looking online, and they recommend really, really, really fine grit sandpaper, like 2,000 to 4,000, or steel wool, and some little metal polish might take care of it. I just have to be very careful not to damage the heads themselves, and it's just this part right here. So I'm going to try and do my best to just kind of touch it up without ruining them. But that's the good news. The heads are in line. Bad news is they're dirty and corroded as hell, which, if they're not totally smooth, the tape, it might cause undue friction, and that'll cause some jittering and, wear down on the tape. So we're going to take care of that. Now, I guess the correct way would be to remove the chrome covers from around the heads, but I am incredibly lazy. So I'm just going to cut some strips of 2000 grit wet dry sandpaper, kind of fold it over a Q-tip, dip it in some isopropyl alcohol, and lightly sand around the heads, being really careful. And then go back over that with a really, really fine Scotch-Brite pad, kind of buff out the rest of the little corrosion bumps. After that, I've got some of this metal polish. It's the Flitz all metal polish. And we're just going to apply a little bit to the heads here, kind of get that going. They say in the instructions, do not let it dry. So I'm not going to let it dry. So while it's still a little bit damp, we're going to go back over it and kind of take off the excess and buff it down with a Q-tip. And then after that, go over it with another pass of IPA and isopropyl alcohol, not the beer, and dry it off. Here's the finished product. Not 100%, perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was. All nice and clean. Now I just have to demagnetize the heads. Got my tape demagnetizer here. It's plugged in. Get it just close enough to the heads without touching and just make a few little passes over. Playback head. And forward head. I guess the erase head, you can do that. I don't know if that makes any difference or not. But definitely these guys here. Here, and one more pass. This is probably the newest, the latest release I have on Reel to Reel. Heartbeat City by the Cars. I have it queued up. It's a 7-inch reel. So I had to set the reel and the speed settings to match. So we're going to listen to the beginning of a track. Hopefully I don't get a copyright strike. So here it goes. And now for comparison, here's the digital copy I have going through my computer system. The verdict? Well, understandably, the digital version is going to be as clean and crisp as you're really going to get. I mean, I ripped it directly from the CD into a FLAC lossless file. So the equalization and everything is going to be much crisper and cleaner. But that being said, I found the tape version had a nice analog warmth to it, especially on those bass drum hits in the beginning. They were much more pronounced and a little bit deeper than the digital version. And I'm sure if you ran this guy through a 10-band graphic equalizer, you could get it really close and it would sound really sweet. Well, we know it plays, but does it record? I gotta find out. The 10-inch reel of tape that came with it was in really bad shape. I mean, there's crinkles and there's flaking and oxidation. So we're not going to use that. Instead, I found a stack of recordable reels, the little 7-inch ones, and some were blank. Some had recordings from the local jazz radio. They just, I guess, recorded it for home. It doesn't say if it's high bias or high EQ. So what we're going to do is just leave the bias and EQ on standard. We have it set to record. I have it on pause. I have my little CD player hooked into the inputs behind it. You also have the option to use the mic input jacks, but these might be really sensitive and hot. So I was playing around with the levels before I started recording this segment just to get everything smooth. So what I'll do, I'll hit play on here. I'll monitor it through there. Play and record. There we go. Now I'm going to record about 15, 20 seconds. As you can see, the little light comes on. The record levels are nice and low, nothing's pegging. All in all, it seems to be working good. We're going to find out in a couple of seconds if it works. I'll stop it. And stop that. And let me do some creative editing so I can hook this into my computer and play back what we recorded onto this tape. Okay, I have the outputs going into my computer so I can monitor this and edit it into playback, and we're going to see what happens. Here we go. Did you think it would be anything else? Sounds fine to me. I mean, yeah, not as pure as the digital, but it still sounds really good. And if, I ever want to put Chumbawamba to reel to reel, well, this is the machine to do it. I'll be. We live in such a wonderful age. When it's all said and done, this was a relatively easy project. I mean, it was just almost basic preventative maintenance, the belts, and, kind of keeping on top of that corrosion problem on those heads. And, this guy was, close to being perfect. I mean, I guess the people who threw the unit out maybe just didn't want to hassle with the old technology or needed the space. Who knows? Their loss, my gain. That's usually the way it works. And, it's always good to have something like this in case you find or run across, some old reel to reel tapes. I know they're really hard to run across now in the wild, especially pre recorded ones or commercially released ones. But, every once in a while you'll find some recordable ones, and, it's fun to see what's on there. Like, an old album that maybe never saw a release onto CD or anything like that. Or, lack of better words, a mixtape. And just kind of interesting to hear. So that about does it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching, and thanks for sticking it out. And I wish I could, have some more stuff and some more time to make some more videos for you guys. So who knows? We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, months, whatever. But until then, you guys take it easy.